from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Radio broadcast, January 1926. If ever the disciples of Mercury crave substantiation of their suspicion that this is a nation 80% moron, they have only to plug in on the air any time between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Shades of Euterpes, what manner of cacophony greets the ear? You, little boy in the back row. Correct. Now, this department hereby declares it has no quarrel with jazz as such. But what does make it stand up on its hind feet and yowl desolately is the insufferable punkness of present jazz. Popular music always was and always will be, and we contemplate no diatribe against it. In fact, to give it due credit, it should be remembered that the serious music of the present owes considerably more to the popular music of the past times than, say, to the classic polyphony of the church. But the rhythmic caterwauling that is spewed forth by 100-odd, very dance orchestras every night can only by courtesy be called popular music. Popular, no doubt, but music, no. If memory serves us right, we used to have a rather respectable brand of dance music in this country 5 or 10 years ago. The tango brought with it no end of delightful pieces of melodic interest and colorful Spanish trimming. But melody and color have been consigned to the puppies. The only goal of present terpsichorean thrumming seems to be the maintenance of a rhythm, and this 100 banjos do every night, with dogged and monotonous persistence. The result may be satisfactory for dancing, but is far from delectable to the listener in who is not at the moment imitating a kernel corn in a popper. Imagine, if you can, the music lover of a couple hundred years hence, collecting the quaint old foxtrot melodies of the 20th century, as we do the charming old gigs, sarabands, minuets, and polkas. The trouble with modern jazz is not that it is jazz, but that it is poor jazz. Our hi-hat friend who comes out flat-footed with the statement that he cannot bear popular music in any shape or form can, 9 times out of 10, be labeled a four-flusher. Of course, there is that rare 10th person who really understands music, and understanding it, realizes that popular music is a very hollow echo of the real thing. But even an epicure occasionally enjoys a fried egg. The line of demarcation between popular and serious music is not as exactly defined as some would have us suspect. At last reports, the savants had not yet voted a unanimous ballot as to which rank claims Mr. Igor Stravinsky. But even as jazz can approach perilously near to being music, so it can likewise move a long way from it. Jazz, as is, has retreated to the limit. The tom-tommery of the aboriginal headhunter must have been less obnoxious than that which delights the present-day chic, if for no other reason than that the savage had fewer instruments and no saxophones with which to perpetrate it. Popular music has been defined as differing from the serious by a diminution of the intellectual content. If the entire intellectual content of the C-lections that pollute the air from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. were stood on end, it would equal about the intellectual content of the third act of Abbey's Irish Rose. Or, if you must have your statistics stated graphically, it would be slightly higher than the grasshopper's instep. In the aforementioned epic of the American stage, not an event transpires which cannot be anticipated 20 minutes in advance by any normal fourth grader. So in our modern dance music, the unexpected never happens. One piece is the Siamese sister of the other. The tunes are the same, the orchestration is the same, the banality is the same. You, gentle reader, could sit down at the piano now and write something better, and so could the jazz composers. But if the dance music that clutters up the long-suffering ether from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is about as entertaining as a game of three-handed bridge played with isinglass cards, what can be said of the songs that adorn these sad 4 hours? They are all cut from a pattern, either riotously peppy or lugubriously sad. Of the two, we most abhor the latter. I want some bahadi, we hear a saccharine baritone imploring from XYZ at a speed of 2.5 miles per hour. And from XYZ, a tearful and flat soprano wails, like a rose, I'm all alone. And we are all but overcome by a wild urge to call up their respective stations and arrange for a get-together. Continuing with our statistics. If all the sickly, sentimental ballads broadcast of an evening were placed end to end, they would reach from Athol, Massachusetts to the Pacific Ocean. That statistical end attained, we would place ourselves at the eastern end of said column and push. But, it is protested, that is what the people want, and what the people want, they should have. With both these propositions, we take exception. In the first place, we are not convinced that such a large number of individuals as is imagined want this juvenile sort of musical substitute. There exist a goodly number of persons who are satisfied with this tasteless diet because they have known no other, but who nevertheless are capable of gustating something at least a little more meaty. Take some ignorant-looking yokel in the lowest ranks of the army of listeners in. Suppose it is discovered that he has assembled his own receiving set. Then, say we, if he has brains enough to know what is inside that mysterious box that brings him in his radio entertainment, he, by that sign, has brains enough to appreciate to some extent the content of music. If he gets a chance. If, for instance, we were to ask him, the song of what small bird, frequently found in clocks, furnishes the motif of Japanese Sandman, Carolina in the Morning, and Berlin's Pack Up Your Sins, we will wager he could discover the answer, and in so doing, he would have, after a fashion, discovered some of their content. But it is to the second proposition, what the people want they should have, we take the most violent exception. Let them, say we, go without it. A cursory glance at this mortal coil discloses it to be populated by two principal classes of beings, the common people and those existing to serve the common people. Pity the poor masses, we hear constantly reiterated. Pity rather the poor classes, we shout. They are the ones who are getting the rotten deal in this age of the proletariat. Everywhere the lowbrow turns, he finds someone waiting to serve and entertain him, to supply at a moment's notice his slightest want. While the poor highbrow searches about, taking his scant pleasures where he may. What's more, the highbrow's entertainment comes high, unless it be communion with books. And more often than not, he has less money than his slanty-domed, ditch-excavating neighbor. With half the world catering to the masses' whims, we often wonder why existence does not become a surfeit and a bore to said masses. If Fuzzy Wuzzy Baby played on a tomato can is the summum bonum in music to them, then imagine how constantly they are surrounded by art. Imagine a world in which every open cafe door emitted strains of Brahms and Debussy, and passers-by whistled airs by Palestrina. Are they whistleable? A world in which every billboard bristled with El Grecos and Titians, and every vaudeville skit displayed the artistry of a Strindberg or a Synge. Well, now that we've quite completely disposed of the issue, whether the public should get what it supposedly wants, let's get back to the subject, which, if we remember, was jazz. A little jazz is relished by the best of men, now and then, but there's no relish in the variety on the present market. Even the redoubtable Paul Whiteman is dishing out the same monotonous stuff as the rest of them, the while riding on a reputation created by mob hysteria, and which he has long ceased to deserve. In conclusion, give us jazz, O Mr. Popular Music Composer. We can stand our share of punishment, but for heaven's sake, give us a better brand of it. We will trade 17 yes sir that's my babies for one Allah's holiday, or what have you.